The very first book I wrote, called The Bluest Eye, was when I was not really thinking about publishing or reviewers or other readers. It was a book I wanted to read, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I began to write it, and it took forever because it had no real reason for being done except my own reading pleasure. It was like a long reading exercise that took 5 years. So when I would...
Did you guys hear that? Toni Morrison is the best. She's one of my favorite authors, and I really wanted to make this channel to talk about reading and writing. And the first video I wanted to make, is about this one right here, The Bluest Eye. It's Toni Morrison's debut novel, and it really relates to the project that I'm working on that I just finished up. I just finished my manuscript, and they're similar, only, I'm not putting myself in the space of Toni Morrison, of course, but they're similar because both of our novels deal with a little girl who is kind of thrust into a world that she's not really ready for, or that she shouldn't have to be in, as a child, as someone who's still naive, and as someone who, has a lot to learn. I think that whatever you're writing, whether you're white, black, it doesn't matter. I think there's always space for Morrison's inclusion into your research. You can draw inspiration from her prose, all of those things, because she really, really is a master of the written word. The Bluest Eye follows Piccola Breedlove, who desperately, desperately wants blue eyes. She doesn't really want to be a white girl or look like a white girl, but she wants those blue eyes. She wants to be pretty. She doesn't want to be ugly anymore because she's been told that her whole life. Morrison, she doesn't miss a beat talking about Piccola's family and how ugly they all are. Her mom has a missing tooth. Her father, his personality it's really, really terrible. The family really personifies ugliness, but Piccola shines, with a sweetness from the inside that readers get to see early on in the book. She actually does something really interesting because early on, she writes from Piccola's perspective, and then afterwards, the majority of the book is actually told from the perspective of other characters centered around her life. I'm really not a fan of trying to interpret a writer's purpose. I don't think that's, really my place. When I read a book, I don't care about what the writer's intention was. I don't care about the writer. I want the story. Upon saying that, I'm just doing this for you guys in case you're interested in it. I think one thing that Morrison was trying to do was not just show the black experience. The word ugly actually comes up in this work a real lot. Morrison not only wanted to show how difficult it is to be black in America and show the black experience, but how difficult it is to be black and be ugly and have to deal with trauma. And that's not only just for the little girl, that's not only just for Piccola. We learn later on in the story that her father, Charlie, that he had a very traumatizing sexual experience when he was young. These kind of, lend to why Charlie, when we meet him in the book, is abusive and, ultimately dangerous. The end is very sad because, Piccola doesn't necessarily end up like her parents, but she kind of loses her mind. She believes that she received those blue eyes finally. It's not a happy ending. It's not very conclusive. It's just reality. That's what we get in the end. We get reality and what reality does to people. I think honestly one of the most fascinating things about this novel though is that it's Toni Morrison's debut. I mean, can you imagine like a book this, I don't know how many of you have read it, but a book this complex, a book this hard-hitting, a book this beautifully written is her debut novel. I would never put myself in that space, but this book really, really motivates me to make my debut the best it can be. And it gives me some hope that, maybe I might not be like Toni Morrison and it might not be a resounding success, but I can try things with language. And that's one of the reasons I'm self-publishing this book. I feel very comfortable with what this book is. I feel very comfortable with the subject matter and navigating that through the perspective of a child protagonist. Because, kids deal with stuff like this all of the time. I didn't want to dumb this down, to a YA or middle grade audience. I think this book is for everybody because everybody deals with trauma. Everybody deals with the harsh realities of life. This book really helped me find confidence and strength in my own writing and confidence and strength in letting my story be what I want my story to be. Somewhat similar to Toni Morrison, What I tried to do was tell the story of a little girl who deals with trauma and then slips in and out of a fantasy world. The trauma that this girl endures is that she comes home one day to find that her father is dead, and this trauma causes her to slip in and out of the real world and a fantasy world where her dog, who is her best friend, becomes a knight. I have published short stories, but I wanted to write something like this that's, I've thought about trauma a lot, and I thought about how trauma affects so many people so differently. I always end up coming back to this book just to read a couple paragraphs and just get inspiration from Morrison. I think that for any of you guys who are interested in reading this book, again, it is graphic. There is violence, there's language, it's hard hitting. My book is going to be the same way, but I hope that this book will inspire all of you who do pick this up to read it. I really hope that this book will inspire you to my one hope, and one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this book and here in my first video was because I hope that it inspires any of you who do pick it up to write boldly, write fiercely, be unafraid. And if you're nervous, you could always pick it up, go back to it, and draw some inspiration from Morrison. Because again, this is just her debut novel, and look at all the chances and risks she took with the storytelling. I know personally, again, I've said this already, but this is what motivates me. This is what gives me strength and confidence in the work that I just finished. And I'm sure that moving forward, you guys are going to see in other videos, more details about this book. But I don't want to release all the details now here in this first video. I wanted to focus more on Toni Morrison, how her debut novel, The Bluest Eye, inspired me, and how it could potentially inspire you guys.